Good morning, everyone. About a decade ago, there was an author, actually an award-winning journalist and news producer, Richard Cohen, who wrote a book called Blindsided, and it chronicled his plight from going from a severely healthy person to somebody with MS and colon cancer. Shortly afterwards, he wrote another book called Strong at the Broken Places, which for those of you who may know is a take from a very well-known author. But Strong at the Broken Places was about 5 people with chronic diseases that range from Crohn's and colitis to ALS and other conditions. And in the beginning of that book, he says, "These are the faces of illness in America. Do not look away. Too often the sick are seen and not heard. Listen. Pay attention." In many respects, we have made it too easy for people to look away. We don't want to burden you with our disease. We don't want to remind you of the frailty of human health. And for a long time, we let others speak on our behalf. Our doctors, academics, researchers. But ironically, they engage with us for a very short percent of our lives. By some estimates, less than 0.1% of our time. The rest of the time, we're living our lives, experiencing our diseases, taking the treatments. We have information that is important for the mix. At the end of the PDUFA 4 agreement, we decided enough was enough. Surrogates, while critically important, cannot and should not speak on our behalf. We went to Congress and we said, we want to have a role in the agreements, hence these stakeholder meetings that started with PDUFA 5. And I remember actually having conversations with Teresa, and I think Patrick, you were involved in some of these conversations, when you had to engage the patient and consumer community. I suspect you thought, oh my God, what are we going to have to do? This is a group of people that are emotive, highly charged, they don't have data. But to FDA's credit, they listened. They paid attention. In PDUFA 5, we saw a number of things that the patient community advocated for, the benefit-risk framework. We saw resources go to biomarkers and patient-reported outcomes and rare disease. We also saw what became the emergence of the Patient-Focused Drug Development Program. And many thought that was just a complete waste of time. And yet, with those meetings, we've had people come in and explain the burden of disease, the burden of treatment. And in every instance, people have walked away saying, what I thought was most important, what we heard from surrogates, was not what was most important to the patient. And now we recognize that we need to mine this information. We need to turn it into data, as Teresa said earlier. And we need to incorporate it not just in regulatory review, but in how we develop drugs. And now everyone in the biopharmaceutical sector is looking at how they incorporate this into the development of their products. It will lead to higher valued treatments that respond to the issues that are important to people with chronic diseases and disabilities. When you look at what we have in PDUFA 6, a large number of regulatory decision tools. Think about how difficult it is for an agency to look at new tools and figure out how to incorporate them when they are charged with ensuring safety and efficacy. Think of the challenge for the biopharmaceutical sector when they would like to develop and deploy these tools, but there's no regulatory certainty or predictability on how to do it. Why would you invest? Why would you put the money there? What FDA and industry have done is they've laid out a map that ends that juggernaut, that catch-22 of how do you move forward with 21st century science and develop and utilize these tools in a way that will produce higher value products faster, safer, more tailored to individual subpopulations. When you look at the incorporation of the patient voice and the guidances that have been laid out, that will provide the clarity so that not a single company is going to develop a product without engaging the end user throughout that development. That's going to lead to higher value products, and that content is going to be pulled forward into the delivery system in ways that we can't even imagine. But it will have huge impacts on ensuring that people get the right treatment at the right time. Huge opportunities. Its integration into the benefit risk decision making. What an amazing opportunity. I've been in this room and I've hit the table with my fist saying, you need to ensure that your benefit risk determinations reflect the end user. We now are setting up the mechanism so that we can, in a representative, validated way, capture that data and incorporate it and communicate it in how benefit risk determinations are made. How significant is that? Real-world evidence, already addressed, but you know what? I understand the challenge with this. There are a lot of issues. We don't yet know exactly how to do this, but I will tell you, if you went to 133 million people who are now living with one or more chronic diseases and said, do you know what real-world evidence is? They'd be able to give you a pretty good sense of what it actually is. They won't know all the nuances, but they'll understand it. And then if you were to tell them we don't use it in drug development, you'd have some people with really serious life-threatening diseases and parents with those conditions who would be really pretty upset. It's time to figure out how do we incorporate this information, especially for the vast majority of people who have multiple chronic conditions, which is rarely incorporated in clinical trial design. Having that information will make this far more safe, and it will give us opportunities to find other options for these treatments beyond simply using products off-label. Adaptive clinical trial designs. From a patient perspective, for so many patients, especially children, in particular children with rare disease, they get one shot at a clinical trial, and then their life is likely over, or they may not have an opportunity to participate in another. If you're in a standard randomized clinical trial and you're in the wrong arm, you've lost your one opportunity. The science is there. We can do better. We need to stand up and figure out how to do it. Model-informed drug development. What a huge opportunity to mitigate the risks and harm associated with participating in clinical trials. Helping to make the process faster, to bring safe, effective treatments to market. Biomarkers, surrogate endpoints, already discussed. I want to add my thanks to the FDA and industry. You didn't look away. You heard us. You paid attention. We want to work with you to implement PDUFA 6. Thank you.
Thank you, Marc.